Lisa stood for. He made her look like a diva instead of the brave driver that people loved watching on TV. Yem said, "Maybe I'm not as smart as Lisa in that way, but I'm not a superstar or anything." The game was tough, so she hires a manager to handle all of her fights. If she doesn't want to drive, he tells them she won't, and she stays at the hotel. Yem had more to say than that. He then made the most damaging claim, which hurt her bravery and skill. He told her that he knew she wasn't driving 90% of the time. He told her she wouldn't drive if things got dangerous for everyone. He even made fun of her and another driver named G.W. Bowles to a driving contest where production wouldn't get in the way so they could see who the people the show made really are. It was clear that Yem didn't like Kelly. He thought he was cast as the jerk while Lisa was made to look like the hero. He said, "I was the only one who went to India without any problems. There was no accident, scratch, ding, or anything else. Was that shown on TV? Not at all, that's not how I act." The problem with this shocking claim was that it went against everything that was shown on the show. Face Your Fears is the title of episode 3, which shows Lisa facing her fear of the ledge, a narrow path on a cliff that made her worry and quit a previous run. She drives it again on purpose to get over her fear, even though a flat tire leaves her wobbling on the edge of a cliff. But the most clear and straight answer to Yem's claims was in Explosive Cargo, the last episode of the season. The last and most dangerous job was to bring unstable jet fuel up the dangerous Rutang Pass to help rescue teams who were stuck because of bad weather. Because of how dangerous it was, Rick Yem and fellow driver Dave Redman turned around and went back, but Lisa Kelly kept going. She moved too. He whole load by herself and quickly became the only truck driver in North America to finish every job for the season. It was hard to deny what was shown on the screen. She was the only one who didn't give up when the road got really dangerous. The relationship had clearly blown up and there was no turning back. Yem's attack after the show shows how deeply castmates can dislike each other when they think producers messed up their edits. There was no talk about it. It was clear that Yem and Kelly had very different ideas and didn't get along. There would be trouble episode after episode. Sometimes they wouldn't even ride together because they didn't want to fight over routes or load duties. The tension was real, and cast comments have shown that what people saw on screen was just as real as what happened in real life. Rick was very strong-willed and energetic, so he didn't like to give in easily, while Lisa was set on not giving up no matter what. They would never give up. And this was the kind of entertainment that reality TV fans wanted. A place where two strong personalities never quite got along, and things got worse over time. There was It seems like something different. I mean, there are a lot of truckers around, but most of them are on the highway or something, and this ice road traffic is something that no one talks about. They drive on ice roads, not paved roads. The river is frozen. One crack could mean life or death. Over the course of several seasons, we've seen nerves of steel fight in the Arctic, but things were very tense behind the cameras. Here is a list of the 5 truckers Lisa Kelly had the most trouble with and why. Let's start the story. 5. Hugh Rowland, who is better known as Polar Bear, was without a doubt the king of the ice roads. He was one of the first people to appear on the show. Hugh had worked on Canadian roads for a long time and knew a lot about them. He seemed like an old guard, maybe because he was tough, had a lot of experience, or was very wary of people who he didn't think had earned their place yet. Lisa Kelly was just a young woman from Alaska when she came into his life. Even back then, you could tell that two worlds were about to collide. There was so much stress that anyone could cut it with a knife. It had nothing to do with experience and everything to do with respect. After many years, Lisa talked about this strain in an interview. When asked what it was like to be one of the few women in the field, she said that Hugh Rowland made her feel bad because he was rude and critical. It was too much for Lisa to handle this attitude. She knew she had to fight back in order to live her life. It seemed like she could only turn insults into jokes if she fought back. The fight for recognition went on for a long time. And during the second season of Ice Road Truckers, a lot of experienced truckers quit. This left Lisa and Hugh alone to drive Bolivia's famous Death Road. This time, there was no way to escape the stress and thorn. They were in a dangerous place with many crumbling cliffs. Their fight was stewing under a lot of stress, and their personal and professional differences finally met on the world's most risky road. Their rivalry was caused by differences in both their personal and work lives. The battle lines were more clear than ever when Season 7 of the show came back to Canada. Lisa worked as a driver for the new company Polar Industries, and Hugh became a co-owner of VP Express, a competitor. Not only did they dislike each other, but they were now also directly competing for loads, money, and even the right to talk. It was safe to say that their fight was brutal, and in one memorable show, it was all laid out for everyone to see. Hughes's bosses didn't bother him when they heard that Hire's driver, Art Burke, had a breakdown hundreds of miles away in Winnipeg. It was a harsh reminder of how tough life was on the ice, where being polite wasn't something everyone could afford. Lisa Kelly and Hugh Rowland's fights were never really solved by shaking hands or saying sorry. Instead, it got bigger as time went on. Lisa thought it began with personal insult and turned into a full-on war within the company, but this fight had effects on her work because she had to deal with constant opposition. Lisa stayed strong through it all. She always stood up for herself and never gave up, even if it was against the most scary and well-known character on the show. Lisa Kelly knew how to drive and fight well. Every time someone spoke back to her, she had a response ready. She moved carefully with each load she brought. In a way, it was a way for her to show disrespect for her competitor's business, which made her more well-known among fans. She had worked hard to get where she was in the business, and she wasn't just surviving the ice. She was also beating everything it stood for. Hugh Rowland was an institutional barrier at the time. He sounded like something from the past and told her she didn't fit. She didn't back down, though, and that helped her find her place on the road. Lisa has talked about that time in other conversations. They never hit each other, but she made it clear that they didn't agree. She made it sound like working with him was hard, especially since the cameras made every argument sound worse. In general, they never really got personal when they disagreed. They were mostly competitive. For each driver, the stakes got higher as the show became more popular, so each episode was a chance to show what kind of person, skill, or toughness you had. It might have been hard for Hugh, who had been a main character since the first season, to share the stage with a young female driver who had what it took to make it big. There were some bad times in the relationship, but it wasn't all bad. There were times when they respected each other, and there were times when Lisa proved herself in the worst situations. Hugh Rowland was a big part of Lisa Kelly's journey, even though the competition never went away completely. During their time on the ice, they fought, respected each other, and fell out. Even though he wasn't the friendliest trucker, he kept trying her to see if she really belonged on the ice, which made her stronger. Rick Yem is number 4. It was 2010 when the Ice Road Truckers Company made the choice to end it all, but the spin-off was something else. Lisa Kelly, Rick Yem, and Alex Debogorski were sent to the Himalayas to drive on the world's most dangerous mountain roads in Ice Road Truckers' deadliest roads. The task was really tough and out of this world. It had crazy traffic and one-lane cliffs that were falling apart. These were called cutouts. Also, there were 1,000-foot drops with no guardrails. The fastest people really did make it through on the ice. It would also start a fight between Lisa and Rick Yem, another warrior, that would last for years. The stress on the show was felt by everyone who saw it, and the drivers also had a hard time with it. But the worst of the impact happened after 2 years. And in an interview in 2012, Rick Yem made a lot of false claims about Lisa Kelly. He made up a story that was against everything he didn't like about Lisa and reality TV in general. He thought they had hurt him. Most of the fights on the show didn't end when the cameras stopped running. This was a hard truth for Lisa to learn. She had a good reputation for being brave and tough. Now she had to defend herself against a bad story told by a former co-worker. Yem's words were direct attacks on her bravery and whole identity. He wasn't the only one on the Ice Road truck crew who had a grudge against Lisa Kelly, though. Third place goes to Dave Redmond. Both Dave Redmond and Yim shared a trait. They were close friends on the show and said that the makers gave them a bad edit. That's like saying every story needs a bad guy. The bad guy on Ice Road Truckers was played by Dave Redmond in the 5th season. He was a truck driver from Alabama, and when he got to Fairbanks, he seemed sure of himself. He only spent a short time on the Dalton Highway, but he had been in a lot of fights on TV before. David Redmond didn't have to do much to play the bad guy. People had seen him fight with his experienced trainer, Tony Molesky, many times over how he changed gears and how stubborn he was. The arguments weren't like most arguments you hear. Because they were so angry, Tony left Redmond at a Coldfoot truck stop. After everything was said and done, Redmond was fired live on the show because he wasn't working with others. However, Dave Redmond says that the bad guy people saw on the screen was a complete lie. He said in many interviews after being fired because of how badly he drove and how badly he treated other truckers that the story about him was made up. He said, "They wrote me to be the bad guy on the show, and they also wrote me to get fired." He said in a different interview that they worked hard to make him look bad in Alaska. He told them, "What you see on TV is so fake, it's not even real." You may be thinking what Lisa Kelly has to do with this. Things get interesting now that she doesn't. Even though Redmond and Lisa both starred on IRT's Deadliest Toads in India, there is no proof that they were at odds with each other personally or directly. The episode summaries show that they each face their own problems, often on different runs. Lisa had trouble getting along with her neighborhood spotter Tashi, and Dave had problems with drivers who were rude and loaded with too much stuff. Their drama comes from being together and not from fighting with each other. The show's clear protagonist was Lisa, while Dave was played as the bad guy. His mistakes and bad mood on screen only made her professionalism and skill shine through. Rick Yem and Lisa Kelly did not get along very well, and Redmond joined forces with Rick Yem. Two drivers, Yem and Redmond, turned back from the last and most dangerous jet fuel run in the Himalayas, which Lisa had to handle by herself. When they both went on the second season of Deadliest Roads in Bolivia, they really became friends as outsiders fighting against the company. Redmond says too,